First, regard to the returning vets and PTSD, I think one of the great shames of George Bush and of the Congress is undercounting of U.S. casualties. You know, the figure 15,000 U.S. casualties is out there, and it's a figure that the Democrats and Republicans both use. It's a false figure. It's a false figure. When vets come back from Iraq, 30% come back seeking medical help. There's been about 400,000 plus troops in Iraq, so we're talking over 100,000 vets who have been injured in Iraq. So this 15,000 figure is one that we should stop using and start recognizing all these vets who are suffering as a result of this war. So we need to get a real number there and not this phony propaganda number that the Bush administration is successfully putting out. Second, with regard to colleges, I am also finding colleges to be active and interested despite there not being a draft. And I think that when Ramsey Clark is right about cutting the defense budget, if we face up to the military-industrial complex, which is not an easy thing to do because they are well organized and well funded and they've done their job of buying candidates quite well, but we need to challenge that system because it's half of our discretionary spending. The reality is we should be putting money into free education through college. That's how it should be. And not mediocre college either. And not mediocre college either, but real college education so people are able to adapt and be productive in this complicated world that we're living in. I think that will do a great deal to really move America forward in much more serious ways than we're moving now. As far as what I would do if I were in office about this, a couple things I'll just mention. One, I would not allow a vote on appropriations of the military budget until we face up to the war power of the Congress. Unless a war is declared by Congress, they should not be voting for appropriations. I would do whatever I could to stop that kind of a vote, whether it's a filibuster or taking some kind of approach that a single congressman, senator could take. I would do that. The second thing is I would take my role in the Senate as building on my 30-year history as an organizer. I've worked on a wide range of issues. Paperless voting is a big problem I've been working on recently. We're trying to get a paper trail for electronic voting, ending the war on drugs, social and economic justice, ending the Iraq war. Those issues I've worked on and I care about. And I would bring the best organizers I could to the Senate and use my office as a foot in the door for the American people. Because we do not have a foot in the door in this Senate. We have a Senate, you know, John McCain is something I don't agree with all the time. But he says about our electoral system something I think is very true, and I'm sure you'll agree with. And that is our Congress, our Senate, our electoral system is a massive influence peddling scheme where both parties conspire to sell the country to the highest bidder. Both countries conspiring to sell the country to the highest bidder in a massive influence peddling scheme. It's happening. Ernest Hollings was a little more blunt when he talked about the Senate on 60 Minutes. He described it as a house of prostitution. That Southern comment was pretty powerful. He said that, and it's a fiction to think they're just getting access. He says they're writing the bills. They're writing the bills, and we don't have a foot in the door. And so when Americans are surveyed, the Economist reported this in July, they're asked the question, do you feel represented by your elected officials in the federal government? Hell no. Only 17% could say yes. 83% of Americans in the greatest supposed representative democracy on earth, 83% could not say they felt represented by their federal elected officials. We need a foot in the door, and if I'm in the Senate, I'm going to make sure that my foot is in the door for the American people. Now, I agree with what I'm going to close on this point. I agree with that the speakers all said we cannot wait for the elections. We need to act now. And I want to tell you that the support for ending the Iraq war, the opposition to the Bush administration, even support for impeachment is widespread, not among just left activists, anti-war activists, but across the board. I was at an event recently where General William Odom spoke, and I was disturbed by his comments. He was very positive about U.S. empire, saying what a good thing it is for the world. General Odom was the national security advisor for President Reagan. He's a four-star general, and he's part of the foreign policy, brain trust of the United States. He's the mainstream foreign policy. And when he was asked in the audience, what do we do, by the audience, what do we do to get control of the Bush administration, he says, how do you impeach? General William Odom, how do you impeach? I wrote about this on democracyrising.us. You can see the article about this on the website. So if General Odom, someone who supports American empire, is talking about impeachment, I think we have an issue that has much more legs than we realize. I think once again the American people are ahead of our elected officials, and this is one more example of how our elected officials don't represent the interests of the American people. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the panel for their comments. I want to urge you to get informed, get active, and help make change. This is our country. Let's take it back. Thank you all very much.